Good evening, good afternoon. Thank you for being with us. This is the Marion City Council work session for Tuesday, November 5th, 2019. We've had a break for a couple of weeks here, so.
It's like a vacation.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody. All right, so we need to do a roll call because of our closed session at the end of the meeting.
Mr. Draper?
Here.
Ms. Atkins? Here. Mr. Jensen?
Here.
Mayor Abu-Asley?
Here.
Mr. Sterned?
Here.
Mr. Brandt?
Here.
Ms. Gedalia?
Here.
Thank you. Before we move on to the agenda, we do just have a quick introduction to be made by Nick Glue with Medco.
Good afternoon, everyone. Some of you, this might be new news, but as you know, over the past 12 months, we've been working strategically to add a member to our team, and I'm here to introduce you today to who that new team member is. This is Dustin Kern. Many of you have known him for many years. He has been well connected in this community, which is frankly one of the reasons that we wanted him on our team. So Dustin's making some changes in his world and will be our new business retention and small business specialist. So we've had the extreme opportunity an honor to work with Dustin on several projects in the past, and so we are just tickled to have him on board. This is his first day today, so do not stop in our offices. They're an absolute mess as we reconfigure a few things. But Dustin is really going to bring some bandwidth to our team that as we've continued to grow our influence in projects that we're driving forward, having him alongside us and driving a lot of those on our behalf is going to be huge. So, not to put you on the spot, you're not usually a man of few words, but I don't know.
Sure.
You guys.
I'm here. I have no problem. Thank you very much, Nick. Appreciate it. But Nick and his staff, the executive committee, hiring committee, the whole Medco board, Nick and I had a breakfast a few months ago and just kind of talked about it and said, what if? And here we are today. And just really look forward to the opportunity to work with all of you, work with Medco, everyone involved in this city. It's a city that's dear to me and everything that's going on. So appreciate it. My office is actually immaculately clean. It's Nick's that has a problem. So check his out, not mine. Appreciate it again. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody. Thanks, Nick. Congratulations, Dustin. Okay, next on the agenda we have a presentation from Amber Bissinger, the City Communications Director, regarding the long-awaited citizen survey results.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. As you know, we conducted our biennial community survey in July and August of this year. Generally, we do the survey every other year, and so we timed it such that this information could help inform the strategic plan, which is in the process of being developed and with sessions coming up in just a couple of weeks. So this is kind of that first step in giving you the results that were found in the community survey. So we worked with the National Research Center to administer the National Community Survey. And what that survey looks at is livability in a community. It looks at the partnership between city government, between private sector, community-based organizations, and residents that are all centered around one geographic area. And so that's what these results tell. They're organized into three categories: community characteristics, governance, and participation. So this survey was mailed to 1,700 randomly selected households. We received 509 responses, as I mentioned, in the July and August time frame, and that leaves us with a 4% margin of error. Additionally, at the end of the collection period, we opened it up and gave all residents the opportunity to complete the survey. Same questions, and we had 526 residents complete the survey in that way. So in all, we've heard from over 1,000 people with this information. And so in the packets, you will have kind of all of the technical appendices that support these findings. We've kept the opt-in survey separate from the statistically significant sample, but what you'll find when you look at that is they mirror each other quite a bit. So there's, it's kind of the way survey administration is going with more people being online, but we still see value in that mailed survey to all households. So the sample was randomly selected. Anyone with a Marion address had the opportunity to be selected. And then the data is weighted to reflect the demographics of the community. That gets us that 95% confidence interval. And as I mentioned earlier, that plus or minus 4 percentage points. So overall, the survey was very positive. 93% of residents indicated the city's an excellent or good place to live, and that's exactly the same as what we found the last time we administered it. With the information that we gather then, we take it and compare it to national benchmarks, and then also a subset of peer community benchmarks. And the difference is, the national benchmarks are basically all communities that this survey is administered to. If they asked the same question, we were ranked against them to see how we measured up. The peer subset are secondary cities, so cities like ours that are in a metro area but not the primary city, and with similar population and household income. So really trying to get a good comparison to cities that are like ours. This is a listing of the peer communities. I apologize, it's a little small, but you'll see they're across the U.S., Oregon to Minnesota to Michigan and Texas. Again, it goes back to if they asked a similar question or the same question, that's how we're measured against them in the peer comparison. So when they put the survey together, they look at 8 facets of community: safety, mobility, natural environment, built environment, economy, recreation and wellness, education and enrichment, and community engagement. And so I'll kind of go through our results in each of those categories. Mind you, there are 141 or 100 plus questions that were asked. So I won't touch on all of them, but again, this information will be on the website and is easy to kind of decipher how the questions were answered. So in terms of community characteristics, it's that what makes us a livable, attractive place where people want to be. And just to help explain how the slides are laid out, the first number, the top number in black, is the number from 2019. That's this year's score. The gray number below is the 2017 data that was provided. So it just provides a quick comparison. Did we go up? Did we go down? But I do want to caution, really, I wouldn't get too concerned over anything unless it's 4 percentage points or more to really signify a change. But we all have our ways of tracking things. So that's just a little, and then the arrows you'll see in the bottom corner, bottom left-hand corner, that's when we're compared, how we compare to our peer benchmarks. So there's a lot of different groups, a lot of different comparisons, but this, for the purposes of this presentation, it's the peer comparison that those arrows determine. So overall image, again, very positive, and most of the survey is very similar results to what we found last time. Love to see the place to raise children. 94% of residents thought that Marion is that place and scored it excellent or good. And that is well above peer benchmarks. We were first or second in that category. 69% see us as a positive place to retire, and 81% rated our overall appearance positively. Then the second pillar is governance, so that looks more at city services. The value of services for taxes paid was unchanged over last time at 50%. The overall direction of the city increased by 7 percentage points, so at 67%. Also increases in terms of welcoming citizen involvement. Confidence in city government was at 61, and then 64% of those responding felt we're acting in the best interest of Marion. Governance continued in terms of being honest, that very similar to last time. Treating all residents fairly jumped quite a bit, up to 70%. Customer service remained stable, and so did residents' opinions on the services provided by the federal government. Then the third category is participation. So this is where they ask questions around how people feel connected to the community and to each other. So those who would recommend living in Marion to someone else, it was that 9 out of 10 people would recommend living here. And 85% would intend to remain in Marion for 5 years. So down slightly, but still a strong response. And then unchanged from last time was 40% of residents said they had contacted city employees. So then when we dig a little deeper, I'll kind of get into those facets. The safety category, 92% of residents have an overall feeling of safety. They rated that positively. 85% felt good about police services. Fire kept its 97% rating, and emergency preparedness down just a couple of percentage points to 66%. Crime prevention at 82% was well above our peer comparators, so that's kind of a positive showing there. Mobility, how both motorized and non-motorized modes of transportation. Overall ease of travel, pretty steady at 77%. Trails and path availability at 69%, also pretty steady. Ease of parking jumped up a few percentage points to 50%. And then we did see 7 percentage points increase in the folks that use public transportation for travel. However, the 36% is still well below our peer benchmark cities. And then those that used public transportation instead of driving, only at 5%. So again, very low. Mobility continued. Street repair, pretty steady, 34%. Street cleaning went down on the heels of probably the worst winter in a while. Street lighting remained steady. Snow removal dropped quite a bit as well. And then sidewalk maintenance remained pretty steady. But again, all of those were right in line with what our peer communities are scoring. The natural environment, the overall environment jumped up to 83%. Preservation of natural areas jumped up 5 percentage points to 61%. Drinking water is lower than our peer city comparisons, up a little bit from last time to 51%. Efforts to conserve water dropped quite a bit. Just kind of some of those interesting things that we can look at later as we kind of try to answer some of the questions that come out of these surveys. Efforts to make homes more energy efficient, down a couple percentage points to 71%, and steady at home recycling at 93%. Garbage collection remained steady at 83%, recycling up a couple points to 80%. Yard waste pickup was up a few percentage points and also ranked higher than other peer cities, as did cleanliness in Marion at 84%. So those are both positive. The built environment, so buildings, the streetscapes, the parks, 69% said we have public places people want to be. And so you think of, in the 2-year window from the last time we did the survey, the enhancements that we've made to our public spaces have been noticed. New development, that jumped up quite a bit as well to 65%. Variety of housing options, pretty steady, but we did rank, I think this was a category we were first in among our peer cities. So one of those standout categories. And then land use, zoning, and planning jumped up to 54%. Storm drainage, that one we kind of took a hit at 10 percentage points lower. And again, with kind of the environmental impacts that we're seeing, something we probably want to look at. Sewer services, pretty steady. Utility billing went down a bit. Code enforcement is another one that dropped about 11 percentage points. So another opportunity for exploration there. And then one of our highest ranking was not experiencing housing cost stress, 81%. Overall economic health, 75%, very in line with our peer cities. A vibrant downtown and commercial area, pretty consistent with last time. The cost of living down about 5 percentage points. And shopping opportunities dropped 4 percentage points, but it is a lower category for us in comparison to our peer cities. And then residents that purchase goods or services from Marion businesses, still very high at 98%. Recreation and wellness, health and wellness opportunities dropped a little bit to 70%. City parks, 85% satisfaction there. Recreation programs and classes increased by about 4 percentage points. And recreation centers or facilities jumped quite a few, up to 65%, again, with some of the new skate park and inclusive playgrounds and enhancements that have been made there. Affordability, this also looks at kind of health care and support services. Mental health care went up to 46%. The availability of affordable quality health care went down to 72%. And then the availability of affordable quality food dropped quite a bit to 63%. So some changes to note there. Education and enrichment, K-12 education has always received high marks, and it went up even further this year to 89% and above that for peer communities. Adult education opportunities, pretty steady. The opportunities to attend cultural, art, or music activities jumped quite a bit, 12 percentage points there. Library services, comparable to our peer cities, right at 79%. And then the opportunity to attend city-sponsored events was the same percentage as our last survey, but with this group of peer cities that were compared to, it was above those in that category. Recreation and wellness, I went the wrong way. Community engagement. The neighborliness of Marion, pretty steady at 68%. Opportunity to participate in community matters was about 60%. Public information services increased from 65 to 70%. And one other notable change was about 10% fewer residents voted in their local elections. So some of that might have to do with timing of elections, but that is a change there as well. So then at the end of the survey, we had the opportunity to ask some custom questions, and the 2 questions we asked were consistent with what we had done before, so we do have that comparison information. For ease in reading the slide, I left it off, but we do have that data that can be compared. The results were very similar to what we had found in previous years. 91% of residents get most of their information, so a major or minor source of information, from local media. Closely behind that was the city website. And then at 86% was the Marion Messenger, kind of our top 3 sources of information. Word of mouth is still very powerful, city social media channels, and then you can see public meetings. Just talking with city officials was at 54%, and then about 40% said that they listened to the audio recordings of council meetings. The other question we asked had to do with whether or not residents would support a property tax or fee increase to fund facility or service improvements. And so again, this combines the strongly support and somewhat support responses to get these percentages. But the top thing on residents' minds appears to be street and infrastructure improvements, especially when you look at those that said strongly support that measure. Public safety and fire rescue are right up there at 84% as well. And then parks rose to the top, with the parks, outdoor trails, park development, and recreation services all in that 75 to 80% range. Schools fell at 71%, community center at 66%, library services at 64%, and then a pool and aquatic center at 62%. I kind of limited it to 10 here, but there were a few more that were included on that list. Public art and support for the airport, and I might be forgetting the last, but the detailed reports outline kind of where those percentages fell. So those were the lower vote getters. So the takeaways, obviously Marion continues to be a desirable place to live, and safety is one of those features that definitely contributes to our quality of life. As I mentioned earlier, 94% of residents rated the city as an excellent or good place to raise children, and 82% of respondents were very favorable of the crime prevention efforts. Second takeaway, residents are pleased with the mobility and definitely support street improvements. 77% of residents positively rated the ease of travel in Marion, and 84% mentioned that they would support a fund increase to fund some of those street improvements. Residents emphasize the importance of the economy and value housing availability and affordability. 75% said that Marion's overall economic health was that we live in a healthy area, and then 7 in 10 gave positive reviews to the housing options that are available. And the final takeaway, recreation and wellness are an asset to community members. 7 in 10 gave positive marks to the sense of community, and 8 in 10 supported increasing funding for park improvements. So it's a quick look at our 2019 citizen survey results.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions? I'll bet somebody does. I have a question. You said that there were about 1,000 respondents.
Yes.
Is that households or individuals?
Individuals.
1,000 individuals. Okay. I think it's important to keep in mind. So, okay. Yes.
Just a request. So in the past, I know that according to I'm in a section that's talking about the trends over time. Mm-hmm. So it indicated there were 131 questions. Now I looked at some of those questions, and I go, even in my position as city council, there's a number of those I probably would not have any input on, because sometimes an average person would not have an understanding of some of those questions. So I think that certainly affects it. But what I would suggest that we consider doing is, out of the 131 items for which comparisons were available, 14 of those showed a decrease in ratings over the 2 years. I suggest, and some of those may be, I looked at a few of them, and some of them were kind of expected, and I can give you the explanation myself, but I think it'd be a valid exercise for the related departments, for those 14 that did decrease, to at least provide maybe a paragraph on each of those as to why they thought it decreased, and if there's any other plan of action needed on an ongoing basis. So again, if this were my business, if I had anything go down, I'd want to know why and say, what should we do about that? So while I understand the overall direction and all of those, I think it's still prudent to say, of these items, what can we do to improve those and turn those around on the next survey?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Okay. Thanks, Amber.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the remainder of the agenda. On page 1 and 2, nothing is marked by staff for discussion, but if anyone would like to discuss anything in particular, please say so at this time and we can talk about it. Yes, Ms. Gadela.
Number 3 on page 1 under administrative services is for the Eat, Drink, and Be Marion, which is an awesome event. This happens to occur the same night that we have a council meeting, starting at the same time. So I don't know who wants to move it, but somebody needs to change something so that we can all go and support our community. So just a thought, it's, 10 months in advance or something like that. So I thought I would just bring that to everyone's attention, because I'd like to go.
Good point.
Yes.
Thank you. Anything else on pages 1 or 2? Okay, Page 3, there are a number of items that are marked. Before we get to those, there's a couple items at the top that are not marked, if anyone wants to discuss those. Okay, then we'll move on to item number 2, Seymour Trail Project. Mike?
So in your council packet, you have the actual agreement, but it doesn't give you a lot of information. Basically, that agreement just shows that we're adding a couple project numbers. So I just wanted to pull up the map and actually show you what we're doing. So the CMAR project is an MPO-funded project where they're going to pay for 80% of it. The city is going to pay for 20% of it. But rather than wait until all of it is ready to go and bid it all at once, we're breaking it up into different sections. So there's 5 total phases. So phase 1 is the portion that we've already bid, and that's the demo of the bridge that goes over Marion Boulevard as phase 1. Phase 2 is actually paving the existing trail that starts at Thomas Park, it'll be just east of Marion Boulevard, and it'll be the part that's in orange until we get to the Grand Avenue spur, and we won't go south on that because that'll have to be an access road for our trunk sewer and for other projects down there. Phase 3 is then the bridge that goes over Indian Creek, where we're actually going to take the existing bridge down. We're going to clean the girders by sandblasting them and cleaning them up, and the girders, 2 of the 4 will actually go back up, and that bridge will be reconstructed with a railroad theme, if you haven't seen the pictures on that, for our railroad heritage. Then phase 4 is the bridge with the gateway above Marion Boulevard, or 7th Avenue. And then phase 5 is basically from our Grand Avenue spur all the way to the south to the city limits. And by then our trunk sewer should be constructed down there because we don't want to build a trail that then we have to tear back out to put the sewer in. So all we're doing with this agreement is the funding is staying how it is. The DOT is just letting us split it up so that we can bid it as we get those projects ready to go. So that's all that agreement basically states.
Can you remind us which phases are bid currently?
The only projects that we've actually bid is the railroad removal, the old that was built in the 60s, the concrete one that's falling. So that's the only project that's actually been bid so far. We have other phases that are close. We're working on plans with Shoemaker and Holland to get them out.
Questions? Okay, number 3.
So number 3 is our survey equipment. So this allows us to go out and construction, either for to design or to go out and stake things as we build them. So we're trading some equipment in and we're buying other equipment. So for those of you that don't know what a TSC-7 is, that is our data collector that we look at when we're out there utilizing our equipment. The robotic total station is this guy. A lot of people think we're taking pictures, but what this allows is, it used to be someone had to stand behind this piece of equipment. Now it actually follows this prism, and it's a one-man show. So that's, basically we're getting an employee without having to pay health benefits. And then this one, so similar to your phone, has GPS in it, but this is survey grade accuracy, so it's like 3 millimeters accuracy. And so this is a unit where you just have to have location to the sky. So basically we're trading in 2 of these units for 2 newer units, and then our data collectors are being updated. And this is part of our asset replacement schedule, but some of you don't know what this equipment is, so I thought just showing a picture so you can see what it is that we're buying.
Okay. Is that pretty clear to everyone? All right, next.
The next one is acceptance of our Northview Drive project. So this project took a while, and as is stated in the memo, there was $14,750 worth of liquidated damages that the contractor was penalized for. The water department was a portion of the project, and they've reimbursed us almost $201,000 for their portion of the project. So now we're ready to close out this project. So by accepting it 30 days after this acceptance, we write the retainage check minus what they owe us for the liquidated damages. And then the project's accepted. I know there's been some issues with some of the yards, and we have a 1-year warranty on that, so we'll see how things pop in the spring, and then reevaluate, and we can have them come back out and fix that.
Good. What types of issues with the yards?
Let's just say every time they seeded it tend to get warm or a drought.
Okay,
so
so
it was never good timing when they would actually
Is the
seed.
final seeding?
Yeah.
Yep.
and Grass, okay. All right, questions on that? Okay, number 5.
Number 5 is then accepting the Third Avenue project. So this was a project where we went out there and we removed several panels, and then when we were all done, we diamond ground it all so it's nice and smooth. This is similar to what we did on 31st a couple of years before that. So again, this is another project that we're ready to accept 30 days from today, assuming there's no filing that subs weren't paid or something, then we cut the check for the retainage. So you can tell our season is ending when things are being accepted.
Okay, questions on that? Number 6.
Number 6 is accepting our sanitary maintenance project. So this was point repairs and manholes. So I actually put a manhole up there that they removed. So this middle one, if you look closely, you can tell that's an old brick manhole. So that was replaced with a new concrete manhole, so that again stops that groundwater from infiltrating into our sanitary sewer that then gets treated at the Cedar Rapids wastewater treatment plant. So we're saving money by doing those replacements and then not adding that capacity to our sanitary sewer.
Okay. How many of those did we do?
I'd have to go back and look at the plans, but there's quite a few.
There are a few, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Yes, ma'am.
Kind of to what you were saying, do we follow the model of doing sidewalks and, we allocate a certain amount of money and then identify X amount that we can accomplish? This isn't going to get everything up to speed, right?
No, so we have about $300,000 that we split between the manhole and the point repair and also the slip lining project. So based on where we know we have issues with public service, they televise things, and then we just take what we can. But yeah, it would be millions of dollars to go in there and fix everything. So we just take what we can and do a portion every year.
Okay. Well, we know the citizens want this based on the survey, so maybe we can revisit whatever that amount is when we do that.
Yeah.
Good.
Keep that in mind. Okay, other questions on number 6? Okay, number 7?
So number 7's actually been open for quite a while. It's just because this had DOT funding in it, it takes a while to get the audit done. And so this is the section that would start at 35th and went to the box culvert that goes under Highway 13. So this is just a picture of them installing the bridge that goes over Squaw Creek. But so again, we're accepting this project. 30 days from now, we'll cut the check for the remaining retainage. DOT has come and done their audit and signed off on it. So we don't, that's why this one waits a little bit longer, because we want to make sure that there's not paperwork that they want to see before we accept the project.
Okay. Questions? Number 8.
The number 8 is a contract with Braun Intertech. So we had 4 different firms that gave us proposals based on OPN's requirements for the new fire station on what needs to be tested. So this is some of the services that they provide. In your council packet, you have a detailed estimate. And again, it's going to be based on, how many times do they actually have to make a trip out to the site? What tests do they have to do? How many times do they have to redo the tests? And so they're an independent testing agency that's working for the city on the city's behalf to make sure that CCI is doing everything that they're supposed to and their subs are doing everything that they're supposed to. They just have equipment and stuff that we don't have. We're not building facilities every day, so we hire them to come in and do it.
Okay. Questions? Self-explanatory. Okay. Moving on with the rest of page 3, there's nothing marked by staff for discussion, but we can talk about any of those items if anyone wants to. Otherwise, on to page 4. Again, nothing is marked for discussion in particular, but please call out anything you'd like to talk about. Okay, then for the next section, I will turn over the gavel to Mayor Pro Tem.
So we'll continue with page 5 here. This is the consent agenda with Mayor Albalasi's abstention. If there's anything anybody would like to discuss, again, nothing marked on page 5. Yes, Ms. Goodell?
The bottom one on page 5 is a payment regarding the runway reconstruction project, and I apologize because I know what I'm going to say is just a fragment of something I remember seeing recently, but due to the weather, we're not able to complete the runway construction. Is that true? So are we paying ahead of something that we're not getting the work done on, or is this kind of back?
No, so for all our projects, we pay for services rendered.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Great question, thank you. Any other questions on the remainder of that page? Seeing none, we'll move over to page 6. These will be items F, G, and H, if there's any questions on that. Otherwise, we will take number 2 then, and this will be, Mike, I guess this is yours, sir.
Yep. So I don't know if anybody has actually taken a walk on the fire station site, but it is a little wet. The picture on the right shows the water that's just draining from Irish Drive to Tower Terrace. So there's a lot of groundwater. Lawn knows because the sump pump stopped working or stopped having to run. So basically what we did is we went in there to this picture on the left-hand side and we put drain tile in, and there's a rock that goes around that, but then the rest is supposed to be suitable material. Well, there's not really suitable material out there, and so that's the material that we're talking about, just filling this with man sand so that we can get that closed up. Otherwise, we have to farm it and try and get it so that it can compact. We're trying to get this project moving. So this was the solution that we came up with, just to backfill that with man sand so that we can keep this moving. Otherwise, with the fall that we had, this project is not going to get started.
Are you saying man sand?
Yeah, it's manufactured sand.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm like, man sand? The heck is that?
Sorry, engineering lingo.
We're back. And we're back to the acronyms again. Thank you, Mike. That was a short-lived trip. Mr. Jensen?
So while we're talking about the fire department, how are we doing on our schedule? Again, the fall weather has been absolutely terrible. So are we starting to slip on that schedule?
So I can say as far as the subdrain package that they do have all the tile in, so that is helping to dry the site.
Okay.
Obviously, it's only going to do so much with the weather that's setting in. Last time I went out there, it still kind of looked like a bomb went off, just with the piles of dirt everywhere, and they didn't have a place to put it. So once they get that cleaned up, it's a matter of CCI getting Rachi in there, but I know Rachi's also trying to finish all their projects up. So I don't know if Deb wants to say anything about it, but.
CCI, Christner Construction, actually wanted to start in October, so we are behind.
Yeah. Okay, so we're starting to slip some.
Yes.
Yeah, I figured so. All right.
The weather was not conducive in the fall.
Oh, not for any of those projects going on, the schools, the airport, the fire. Just been awful. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you, Mike. Moving on, this will be section F, community development. Are there any questions in this one? Again, nothing is highlighted. Yes, Renee, please go ahead.
B1B. I just have a quick question. I know this is a payment for sorry, I'm just going to leave it on. I know this is a payment for consulting services, and we typically have this. The main paper says that the backup rather, says that we have a budgeted amount of $30,000. Is that for the calendar year for consulting services for 2019?
That may be I'll have to look at the look at the paper. Yeah, that one's kind of an open-ended contract because of the way that it's structured. You know, they provide us the service when we need it to get the property acquired. I don't think there's a cap on that.
So, okay, and that's the point I wanted to get to, and not for this meeting, but I don't know, I guess in our budget meeting or whenever we get to that, I know in the next couple of months, this has, is this expenditure budgeted? Yes. It's obviously within that, it's right under 30,000. What I'm interested in is, what the cap is on this, what we allow every year, what we have to date, and again, thinking about a part-time professional for the airport. Just would like to have numbers to compare when we get to the budget in terms of how we're funding the expertise at the airport. So all of that stuff surrounded to this just made me think about it, what we were budgeting in 2020. And it says, to reflect the airspace needs as recommended in the airport layout plan adopted by the City Council in 2017, but that's changed. It's less robust than what was approved in 2017, and so I just want to make sure that the funding is also commensurate with that, less consulting, one less runway, that kind of thing. So to the degree that we can kind of put all those pieces together when we're doing the budget, I'm just bringing this up now because it kind of jogged my mind for it. I know we'll be planning. I would like to look at how we're paying for airport consulting versus having someone on staff. Thanks.
I was on the wrong item, actually. That is Anderson Bogert payment. Yeah, that does have a 30.
No, I'm on
House of Levine?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
B.
Yeah, that's a contract that, that's a part of one of the grant contracts we have, so I'll make sure that it's kind of resolved. But I get what you're saying on we got a lot of different pieces right now moving forward. So the House of Levine contract, we should be done with that soon. And that was to complete the zoning and land use planning, which, by the way, we're working through that with the county right now. So that one should be done soon, and that was an 80% funded reimbursement from the state for that as well. So that's
good.
Yep. But we do have a contract with Anderson Bogert for consulting services and professional service related to that, and then we have the whole runway project. So there's a number of different funds that are being.
Yeah,
so I get
and
what
we
you're
never.
saying.
I don't think, at least I haven't seen all of those on one high-level document of
Sure.
where's all the money that we're spending on the airport, so that we can see what that is. And
If there's a desire, I can put together a report that kind of identifies that and just get it to the council if there's a desire for that.
I don't know. I think coupled with when we're talking about prioritization of things, that's when I think that's when it would be helpful to inform what we're doing. Back to the citizen survey, we added that airport question, and that was very strongly opposed to use public money for that. So I want to make sure we're reflective of that as well. So anyway, but no, I thank you for the offer. I think maybe it'd be prudent when we're talking about CIP and budget stuff, I think in the January or February timeframe.
Okay.
Thank you, Renee and Tom. We'll continue on then. Are there any other items leading up to item G there that anyone would like to discuss? Okay, seeing none at this point, I'll be turning the meeting back over to the mayor for the regular agenda.
Thank you. Under Administrative Services, we have public hearing regarding a budget amendment. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, or good evening for me in the back, at least. In order to, this is Elmo, right? You told me not to call it Elmo. I can do the budget, yeah. While that gets warmed up, council may remember back when we were doing the budget, speaking of the budget, it seemed like it was just yesterday, but almost a year ago. And we finalized the budget due to the time frame when we did the publication, which we normally do before the final draft we present to council. This last time around, we had some changes that we did in the third draft of the budget. Those weren't able to be made prior to that publication, so that limits what we can do in the budget. So we had mentioned there would likely be some administrative changes, so we'd be instituting a first quarter amendment. Typically, we'll do a end of the year amendment for budgets. In Iowa, budgets aren't required on the expenditure side until you're actually going over one of those category levels, function category levels. So we usually don't get close to that until the end of the year. But being we were going to do a first quarter amendment to clarify some of the changes that council wanted in the budget this last year, we also took the opportunity to include a couple things on carryovers. And what a carryover is when we're, since we operate on a cash basis at the end of the year, anything that we don't have booked by June 30th, but we would have budgeted by that year, would go into the next year's budget for the expenditure side of it. So anything that we had budgeted, and there was usually a timing issue why a department couldn't receive that item, then we didn't want to penalize that department and say, you cannot spend those dollars, you need to wait to another year. So what we'll do is we'll increase the budget the next year to account for those differences. And the savings we'd have in one year would carry over to the next, so the fund balance would cover that. So in this amendment that you have before yourself, in a memo, and got my glasses. Sorry, I'm a newbie here. On the revenue side, there were just two items in there. One, the library able to get, this is actually one other additional piece that was added to this. Library was able to secure some additional funding from Friends of the Library that they were looking to spend in FY20, so they asked if this can be included. So it's actually a $30,000 donation. Since there's a transfer, actually the transfer is somewhat counted as it's moving across funds, but it's $30,000 counted as 60 in revenue. And then the other side is community event sponsorships. The council may have also remembered this last year's budget. There was about $20,000 set aside for events in the community. But with the work that communications has been doing in securing events and sponsorship, they actually have asked that, or they haven't really touched that general fund dollars yet. So they said, we're getting so many dollars, can we budget that amount to go forward? So that they're expecting there would be up to about $25,000 in sponsorships that would come before some of the general fund dollars going forward. So they've been doing a great job in moving that forward. So those are the two revenue items there.
Why can't the revenue column be as long as the expenditure column?
If you can solve that, you'd be on the financial side of the big behemoth there is debt payments. So in 2019, the debt we issued, Leanne asked that we get that in there so we have the updated figures for that. So when we do a budget, we get a certain set of numbers. These are actually the final numbers we have for those 2019 debt series payments for interest and principal. So those were added in there. In the budget last year, there was a retirement payout expected this year that didn't make it in there. So this is coming. This is added to the budget. Workers' compensation allocation. This is hitting the proprietary funds. So they have a little bit higher workers' comp claims than the general fund does. There's the other side of the library donation we talked about earlier. There's a traffic IT server migration in there that was budgeted for public services that they weren't able to get to last fiscal year that they're expecting to get done this fiscal year. And then a couple pieces on the library furniture and other pieces as the library has a number of years they put on hold sprucing up and making some changes to some of the furniture they have in the library. They asked for a reasonable amount in order to continue to move forward their equipment needs while the new library is being built in there. We have some position cost reallocations in there as well. That would be the proprietary fund sharing of the general fund cost reallocations. That was net zero. And then going on the list, there's a couple other ones there that I could speak to if the council would like.
Questions?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Zach. All right, on to number 3.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a resolution that would approve a lease agreement with Medco Holding Company for some of the fiber assets that the city owns that extend out to the Marion Enterprise Center. As the council may remember, earlier in 2019, Medco approached the city council about a program that they would like to offer out at the MEC. In the world of economic development, every park looks for something that they can offer to make themselves different than the other ones out there, because in that arena, basically anytime you've got a company looking, they're looking for reasons to cross you off the list rather than to add you to the list. So you want to put your best foot forward. So they've been working with vendors to be able to provide discounted internet service, to be able to take advantage of some of the bandwidth that's available in the community through Involta and the variety of providers that they have there. But the key to it is to be able to transport the data. The city, when we put our fiber networks in, we always build in extra capacity. So for example, if we're using 6 fibers, we may pull 72 in or even 144 because the incremental cost of adding the additional fibers is really minute compared to the cost of the overall project. So we like to give ourselves a lot of flexibility. So this lease is intended to give Medco Holding Company the ability to access some of those fibers on behalf of what they would have for qualifying businesses that would look at coming into the Marion Enterprise Center. We worked this out a while ago, but I think Nick has finally gotten to a point where he's ready to be able to move forward with several of the internet providers out there and be able to add that to Medco Holding Company's offerings. If you have some questions about the maintenance, I mean, this is our fiber, so we're already responsible for making sure that it's located. If there's a repair that needs to be done, it's likely going to be something that's going to affect all of them, so there's a very marginal cost for us to be able to do that because we're going to be out there anyway.
Questions? Okay. Items 4 and 5 on page 7 are not marked, but if anyone wants to discuss those, please say so at this time. Otherwise, public service. 2 items there.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item number 1, it's approving a shared road maintenance agreement with Lynn County. This is something that there we go. This is something we do probably every 5 years or so. The past couple years, we've seen some growth within Marion. We've been annexing more out for subdivisions, things like that. So we've seen some residential growth. And so with this revised agreement, it defines what the city of Marion is going to maintain in terms of pavement maintenance as well as snow removal, and what Lynn County will maintain as well. And so in your packet, you'll get a map like this. This will define our new agreement. We're trying to balance out lane miles. We're trying to keep it comparable between Lynn County and Marion. The biggest changes for Marion this year are going to be on 35th Avenue. That was maintained by Lynn County for quite some time. They maintain it from 35th Street to the highway. We've decided to take that over due to the growth out there, the new school, the church. And then also for Now Road, we're going to take this over on the other side of Highway 13. We have some residential growth out there. And then also over on Marion Airport Road, we're going to take that over as well. And so with those changes, those proposed changes, that's going to let us balance everything out in terms of roadway maintenance. So, any questions on those?
So what is the difference in the 2 colors? So the red and the green are all roads?
No, the red is if you look in your packet, the red is maintained by the city of Marion.
Okay.
And the green will be maintained by Lynn County secondary roads.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Even though the map doesn't look like much, it actually takes an extraordinary amount of time to come to an agreement what we're going to maintain. So.
The action item is approving this agreement.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Is the section of Muner Road between 31st and 35th, is that county road?
Yeah.
Huh.
So this is why we need these agreements, is that a lot of people don't realize that even East Post Road a good section of East Post Road is actually in Lynn County. And so those are very heavily traveled roads. We have different service levels, Lynn County secondary roads in the city of Marion. And so deciding who's going to maintain what, that's what we get into here. And so there are quite a few roadway networks that are in Lynn County that we maintain. Alburnett Road would be another one. Most people think that's just us. All of that's in the county.
So this isn't all of them, this is just what you're adding, what you're changing.
This is all of them. This is all of them
This is all
defined.
of them?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yep. Yep.
All right.
Yep. The ones that went over are the big ones that we're going to change this year.
Well, you said quite a few, so I thought
Yeah.
maybe there's more than these. So, okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay. Questions on that, or is that clear? Okay. Next item.
Item number 2, this is approving a contract with Switch Electric for our electrical grounding packages. This is associated with our public service maintenance facility. Right now, they're in the process of putting foundations in. And so what we had to do is go out and get an electrical contractor for a portion of the electrical programming. The reason why is that the grounding in the facility is quite extensive, but we have to ground it when we're putting the foundation in. The grounding mechanisms are tied to the foundation rebar. And so we had to split this package out specifically just to get the grounding in with the rebar. We went out, solicited bids. We got 3 bids back. Switch Electric was by far the low bid at that price, and staff is recommending moving forward with that contract. So.
Okay. Questions? Yes, sir.
Just another general question, like the fire department, how much is the weather affecting your project?
It has, in terms of grading. It's pushed our project back probably 6 weeks, but we're hoping in the next week we're going to close that to 0. And so once we get the foundations in, once everything's rocked, we're hoping within the next week and a half we'll be in should be in a situation where you see everything start going up.
Okay.
And so right now, just an update, the foundations are being poured as we speak. We had to redesign our foundations because when we went to excavate the soils, it's so wet, the soils started collapsing. And so it took us some time to get that figured out. And so, but as we speak right now, foundations are going in, everything's getting graded out there. So we're hoping we'll be sitting pretty good in the next 2 weeks. And
You're
so
going to be talking about a lot of yards of cement out there.
it's a big.
That's a big number.
It's big. It's a big facility. If you get a chance, go ahead and walk out there. You're more than welcome.
I intend to, yeah.
It's big.
Yeah.
So, yes, sir.
Okay. Questions? All right. Thank you. On to engineering. Mr.
So
Rockwell.
item 1 is a motion to receive, file, and discuss and refer to TAC a petition regarding adding a stoplight at the intersection of Indian Creek Road and 29th Avenue, and the petition is included in your council packet. And then related to that, item number 2, we went ahead and did the TAC report since this was just studied in 2018, and basically gave them a copy of that report via a SharePoint file and said that we just studied this intersection and it does not meet warrants at this time. So we're not recommending putting the signal in until it meets warrants. Obviously, we had school involvement with this. We met with the crossing guard. We had a joint city council and school board meeting. So I feel we hit this one pretty well. So some of the public just may not have realized that those meetings went on. So that's our recommendation for part 2 moving forward, is to leave the intersection as is. We'll continue to monitor it to see if they meet the
Remind
warrants.
us what has to happen to justify stoplight?
What's that?
Remind us of what has to happen to justify a
So there's a
stoplight.
series of warrants that have to be met as far as traffic volumes.
Right.
So without getting into the details of it, basically it's only met for like the hour in the morning and the hour when it's dismissed. Otherwise, it's not met. During normal circumstances, the intersection works just
'Cause
fine.
I think most people look at those peak times and they think, there's
Right.
a lot of traffic here, which there is. But, so what you're saying that most of the day it's not.
Right, and so
near
then it
those,
causes undue delay by sitting at a stoplight that stays red, you're wasting fuel, and it also provides a false sense of security, because people tend to run red lights when there's no one around. So you don't want to install them unless they're actually warranted to be put in.
Okay. And you are communicating, you've already communicated with the petitioners?
They've already gotten a copy of the TAC report.
Have, okay.
Yep.
It might not be a bad idea for some of us to follow up too, I think, just to make sure they understand the reasoning and all that.
There's a whole petition of all the phone numbers, so I don't know if you want to call all of them,
Well,
but they
there's
all
gotta
got
be
a letter from me, so.
There are people, leading it, so.
Yep.
Okay. All right, questions on that?
And if you need a copy of that, you guys can click on the link just like they can if you need a copy of the report, or if you would like a copy printed, we can print a copy for you too.
Yeah, I remember it.
So item number 3 is a motion to receive, file, discuss, and refer to TAC a request from the Marion Independent School District, and to form a working group with representatives from City Council and the Marion Independent School District. And they do have a representative here, superintendent's here, if you'd like to hear from them. But basically the Safe Routes to School, again, if you don't have a copy of it, we can provide one. It's pretty big. And so it's just a matter of, there's some stuff in here. I won't read through all these, but in the Safe Routes to School, it states that the school district will pay for something. They're asking for the city council to pay for half of it. So since this is already an approved document, if we're going to modify that, I need some direction from council. So I thought having a council member or two on a working group would be a good idea. That way, if we're making changes, we have that input from the city council to know if you are in support of that or if you want to stay to what the original plan was.
Okay, so that was on your recommendation that we're getting this request, or?
So the Safe Routes to School was developed jointly. So it was.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about having the representatives in the working group.
That was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, just clarifying. Okay, did you want to address the council on any of this, or? Oh. Just say your name and address.
Janelle Brower, the superintendent for the Marion School District. And I certainly can answer any questions, but this letter really initiated from the Safe Routes to School plan, a work team working with Mike, people who had also helped develop that plan, and looking at some of the challenges as a district that we're facing, specifically with drop-off and dismissal procedures, student safety around that, and ensuring students are able, whether it's walking, biking, or being dropped off, picked up from school, that we have safe travel. So the letter really is to request the opportunity to work collaboratively with the engineering department, with the city team on what's the best way to address. The plan takes a look logistically, but it doesn't incorporate that engineering aspect of really the traffic study and whether these are feasible solutions. So that's our intended next step. Our goal as a district would really be to look at drop-off and dismissal to start the next school year. So that's kind of our timeline in trying to be proactive, that we can address some of those things, hopefully, where they need to be.
Okay, thank you for that. Questions? Okay, so this will be received, filed, and there'll be a recommendation.
Referred to TAC, and then if there are any council members that want to express interest, then I can have them come to those meetings.
Okay. Councilmember Brandt has a question. Oh, you want
No, let me know.
you want to be on the committee? Okay. So we have one volunteer already. That's great. Progress. Well, we do always like collaboration. I think it yields better results when we collaborate on things. So, okay, we'll look forward to discussing that. Number 4.
So number 4, we didn't talk about this project too long ago, but it is now time to apply for more funding if we want to. So I just wanted to kind of walk the council through this. So the MPO, which is a group of Robbins, Cedar Rapids, Hiawatha, Ely, and Lynn County, and ourselves, is all together as one MPO. As a part of that MPO in fiscal year 21, they have $25,000, which won't get us very far. But in fiscal year 24, they do have $2.8 million approximately that will be available for road funding. In our CIP currently, we have money in fiscal year 22 that's $3 million that comes from loss and bonding. In '23, we have 3.1 million from lost in bonding, and in '24, we have 4.7 million from lost in bonding for a total of 10.8. So obviously, if we apply and are awarded this, that would offset some of that 10.8. So we discussed this back in April. At that time, there was only $776,000 that was available in fiscal year '23. If you recall, they defunded the Boyson Road modifications, and instead they funded the two ends of the Tower Terrace and 380 interchange. At that time, just to remind council, we did have the project with the highest score and the most put together application. But because Tower Terrace is such a vital transportation network, it was not selected for that funding. So we're still working with Anderson Bogert to get the construction estimates together. So it's basically broken into 4 phases there. So 8th to 12th in the uptown is the most expensive portion at about 4.3 million. 12th to 16 is about 2.4 million. 16th to 22nd is about 2.2 million, and 22nd to 26 is 2.5. So this money would not become available until '24. So the thought is we use our local lost and bond funding to do the uptown or do a section on the east until this money becomes available, and then we can do the center section with the MPO funding. With that MPO funding, it would be similar to the Tower Terrace funding that we're currently under design for with Anderson Bogert as well, on a joint project with City of Cedar Rapids to build it from C to Albernet. And so we just have to be careful, because sometimes when the DOT gets involved, we can't be as creative. We have to follow their specs, their rules. And so when we have uptown businesses that are involved, and maybe we want to be more creative on how the construction happens so that businesses still can have access, I would prefer that be under the City of Marion control rather than what the DOT says we have to do. So I would not recommend 8th to 12th for that reason. With the others, that's why I kind of combined section 2 and 3. So with that, that's about 4.6 million. If we receive the 2.8, it would be about 60.8% funded with the CMPO. They will pay for up to 80%, so we should be safe in there as far as that amount. We can also look at traffic safety improvement program grants for that area as well, because what we're doing is considered a road diet when you go from 4 lanes to 3 lanes to make room for the side pass, the parking, and everything else. So we're recommending moving forward with applying for funding for section 2 and 3 at the total of the 2.8 million. And then just to show you the roads, the fiscally constrained plan, this is the CMPO projects. So the very top project, Project 46, is in Marion. It's the Marion Boulevard, 7th Avenue, 10th Avenue. And at the time, it was estimated to be $6 million. At the time of construction, $7.8 million. In the time frame of 2020 to 2024, has a score of 242.15. So it's obviously still the highest scoring project. The application that we will do, so the application packet was in your council packet. So we would basically fill it out the same way we did last time. We would submit the entire set of preliminary plans so that it would be a well put together application. So I don't see why they would not grant us the funding this time. So that is where we're at, but I would open up to discussion if we want to discuss this at all.
I was there when they announced that it was the best application filed and highest scoring, and we didn't get the funding. So I made them feel bad enough that I hopefully they'll give us the funding this time. But we'll certainly keep on them to fund this, because we don't have the opportunity to fund big projects like this very often. Most of those big projects happen, in other parts of the corridor. But
yeah, so basically we have Tower Terrace C to Albernet as an MPO funded project. A lot of the trail projects that we're doing, that's where those MPO funds are coming. Yeah. And then the only project in the future that's in the fiscally constrained plan is the Tower Terrace Bridge, and that's out a few years. So
yeah, but good job on submitting the best application. Any questions for Mike on that? Okay. That concludes the engineering section. Under Community development, we have one item on Rookwood Estates not marked. Pretty self-explanatory. Okay. On the last page, we have a alley vacation. Did you want to talk about that, Tom?
Yeah. I can get this to work.
Does anybody have questions on the Fraser item? Which is number 2 at the top of the page? Yes, sir.
Just real quick.
We have a question.
With number 2, is that zone for residential still? That section, the Fraser?
Yeah. Yep.
That's the same.
Yep. What had happened is they had sold the ground and they didn't plat it, so they have a piece of paper that says they own property, but there's no piece of paper that defines that property yet. So with this action, they'll actually have title to a parcel.
This is creating the legal description so that it could be transferred legally.
Correct.
Okay.
I was having a little computer glitch here. No. My mouse isn't working. Apparently. There you go. So the proposed alley vacation, the council's received the reports between 10th and 11th Ave and 27th and 28th Street. I guess the important thing to know is that this is originally platted in 1887. It's never been improved. It's a grassy, it's a grass alley. We've got multiple ones across the city where they were platted but never made improvements. There's no accessory structures off it. So essentially it's a 10-foot section of property that is receiving no taxes. And so we go through every now and again upon a request to vacate these, and then we try to work with the property owners to sell the adjacent property owners a portion of that property. Here it illustrates, you can see like the fences where there's a 10-foot section of basically city property that just sits there. There's a utility easement in it, so upon vacation we'll want to maintain the utility easement. But ultimately, we like to clean these up over time. We usually like to do them in the winter. It's not the easiest work. A deed for each one of these properties has to be created to transfer the property, and legal loves it, I'm sure.
Do you actually create an abstract, or just?
I don't know if we get that far, but.
I don't know of any abstract being created through them ever.
Usually it's a 5 by 60 foot piece
Right.
of yeah. They can't really do much with the property once the owner owns it. It's just they can use it legally, I guess you could say, but it's.
But they buy it and then it gets combined with their property, and then it's goes
Placed
on the tax rolls. Yeah. Okay.
But it takes a lot of coordination. So as you'll see on Thursday, we'll have the public hearing regarding the vacation of the alleyway. But we will not proceed with selling it. So there's a whole other public hearing on the disposal of city-owned property. We like to get as many people as we can on board with that, and then we do one public hearing and sell it all at one point. So I didn't check and see how many property owners there are here, but it looks like at least 10. So that's a lot of coordination.
And people on both sides of it are offered the opportunity to buy half.
Correct.
Right?
What we
So
do
5
is
feet.
we go to the properties, and each adjacent property is offered the opportunity to buy their proportionate share of the alleyway. If they choose not to, the adjacent property owner can buy all of it. We really like it when they decide to buy it down the middle, and we don't get that like broken teeth property line. But we work with folks on it.
And remind us how the purchase price is determined?
It's 35% of the average assessed value of all the property. And so there is I know you can't read that, but it was in your packet. And it really outlines essentially what the offer is to all the adjacent properties. It ranges, one person must own 2 lots for $500. The others are about $254. So not a lot of money, but it does, place it back in the tax rolls and kind of cleans up some areas.
We have a question, sorry.
So what happens if, so we vacate it now, but what happens if some of those homeowners don't want to purchase the property?
It doesn't really change the fact that it's public property. It's just vacated for public use, which it's not being used for public use currently. All the utility easements would remain in effect.
But the neighbor would have the right to buy it, right?
Yeah, but I think the question is if
nobody wanted it.
If nobody wanted it.
Yeah.
And what we generally do is address that, because the last thing we want to do is sell all of it but one piece. So we work through that over time. Yeah. Generally, for this amount of money, the folks are pretty, all right, it's not a huge deal, we've found. But if it becomes an issue, we generally like to make sure that it's connected to another public right-of-way. So we'll see how it goes. Really, from here, what we do is we go out and we have a neighborhood conversation with everybody.
Well, my question, I guess, is just, do you put the vacation ahead of talking with everybody to see if they actually want to purchase it? Because obviously we know one person does, because that's what started the whole thing.
Yeah.
So do you wait to do the vacation at the same time, or?
Tom, do you want me to address the legal implications on that?
Sure.
Okay, because I think that's where the question is coming from. The only difference to us between it being vacated and not vacated, we still own it. We're still responsible for maintaining it. So right now, the option would be, if we're concerned about that, would be to not vacate it at all. It stays the same, and then we wouldn't have any opportunity to sell it. So if we vacate it and Tom goes out and he can't negotiate a purchase where the center, like say there's one that would be right in the middle and we wouldn't be able to access that to maintain it, then we just wouldn't necessarily go through with the other purchases. Or we'd negotiate for somebody who has an adjoining chunk of that alley to buy that portion. But vacating it doesn't change our responsibilities as the owners. It just means that we're not using it as a public right-of-way.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other part, if someone decided to take their vehicle and run down the middle of it, it's public right-of-way. Not that it's improved, but it does bear the question of, if we vacate it and they did that, well, it's public property, but it's not for public use. And so this is something we probably should address with all of them, but over time this is kind of an issue that.
It just means it's no longer a public alley.
Correct.
A platted alley.
If you can imagine being an owner and you wanted to walk up that alley as it currently sits, you have every right to be back there carousing at kids and bikes and different things like that. So I haven't spoke with Mr. Hockett specifically about this, but generally there's a group of folks that he's talked to before we get going too far down the road. So I would assume there's been some other conversations other than the initial applicant. But I can find that out before Thursday too.
Thank you. Makes sense.
Okay. Item 5, Fritz Development. Is there any questions on that? Otherwise, we will have the library presentation at this time. 2 minutes ahead of schedule.
Nice.
Oh, I was looking at that on my watch. It's amazing. So, good evening. I wanted to have a chance to come forward and just give you all an update on the library project. There's a lot going on, and I want to make sure that you all are aware of what's happening and what the next steps are to come. Currently, we are having bi-weekly pre-construction meetings on the library project. I want to thank Councilman Jensen and Councilman Brandt, as well as our city staff, Mike Barcalow and Tom Treharn, for participating. We're having lots of meetings, and those meetings often are lasting more than an hour. So lots going on, and the next step in the process will be to formalize our budget ask, or our building project ask that we have been discussing with council. And we had our previous work session that we had with council and the library board. We presented our budget, and we have given all of the information that we have and the needs that we have from a budget perspective to the city manager. And I've asked the city manager and his team to bring that forward at our next council meeting so that we can get final approval. The reason why I think that's a big deal is because we really need to make this project more public and start having conversations with the community on what's going on. My plan for the next council meeting is to bring forward the entire team, including our construction manager, our architect. We're working with local civil engineer Anderson Bogart and some other local folks to do some of the pre-construction work that we're doing. All of the pre-construction work that we're doing up to this point is we're using the monies that we already have within our local option sales tax to cover those, and we really don't want to go any farther than where we are at this point without knowing for sure that we have the rest of the funding as we have proposed in our budget from the council. So I will consider the next meeting sort of that public kickoff, so to say. The good news about the timing of all of this, it's been somewhat intentional in that we wanted to have stuff for not only you to react to, but also our public to react to. So we have meetings happening next week where we're bringing through our steering committee that Councilman Jensen and Councilman Brandt are on, as well as some of our citizens. We've invited Medco and the chamber boards to come in next week and react to some of the final decisions that we're making. And when I say final, these are final preliminary drawings that we want to bring forward to the community to react to and to look at this point. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that starting hopefully the next council meeting, it's going to become a little bit of the library show, along with my partners that are also building at the fire station and public service. So we're really going to start moving things forward. The way that the schedule works right now is, as long as everything gets approved, the next phase is the first part of December. We are going to turn over all of our preliminary assumptions, our schematic design, to our construction manager to do estimation and make sure that we can do what we want to do in this preliminary kind of design phase. And then the rubber really hits the road in January once we get those estimates back from our construction manager to say, can we really build what we want to build with the budget that we have, making any final adjustments, and then we're going to be rocking and rolling after the first of the year. So I just wanted to give you an update. I don't have anything formal to show you at this point, but we do hope to have that starting the next council meeting. I am deferring to the city manager's office about the process for making the ask and the financing and the budget for the next meeting. That's in their court at this time. And we'll be working with them to present that to you all at the next council meeting. So any questions or comments for me about where we are, what we're doing? I know Councilman Jensen and Brandt are involved. If there's anything you would like to include that I may have left out.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to say thanks for the update, and I'm glad to see and hear that it's probably going to be kind of frequent, because this has been going on so long and stagnant that I think it'll be good for people to get re-engaged, see the change of location, et cetera, and then see it's finally moving on. And I think, doing that publicly will certainly help that. So thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think my comment will be the fact that, again, there's a broad group of people involved in this. And again, we're starting to see it get down into those details and in a structure and in a way that you can present it to the public. So you're not there yet, but you're getting very close. And when you do get to that point, again, like a lot of people, I think a lot of people are waiting to see that. And I think that will get the public energized about the project.
Thank you.
Is there a committee forming?
So Councilman Jensen's comment just reminded me that we did get our feasibility study results back, and we will be moving forward with a capital campaign. Those were in the final stages. I'm a little bit of a crazy person right now because we have a lot of things kind of hitting at the same time. So We're just now working to sign the agreement with Amperage to move into a capital campaign phase. So as we continue to move in that direction, we will start a capital campaign committee that will be led by our foundation committee. So that capital campaign committee won't be out of the library, it'll be out of our fundraising partners that support us. But we will be looking for capital campaign committee members and folks to help us with the public $3 million campaign that we're looking to do as a part of our budget.
Okay.
We have preliminarily selected Nancy Miller as our honorary chairperson for the campaign committee. We don't really have a name for the campaign yet, but I envision this kind of continuation of a legacy that, she helped us get into the library that we are now, and she's such a cheerleader for the library. So we are anticipating her serving in that honorary chair position for fundraising. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, we have a closed session on our agenda. We thank everybody for joining us, and if you'd like to stay here until we finish the closed session, you're welcome to. Don't forget to vote. Will someone make the motion? Go ahead and make the motion, please. Oh, wait, we're not finished yet.
Is it
Sorry.
me? Oh.
Just give us a second. Yes, go ahead.
I make a motion to adjourn to closed session regarding land acquisition as permitted under section 21.5, 1, is that a J, of the Code of Iowa? Is it J or an I?
Where?
Jay.
J, thank you, sorry. Need glasses.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn to closed session regarding land acquisition. May we have the legal counsel's opinion, please?
I have reviewed the proposed subject matter for the closed session and find the same to be appropriate under Iowa Code Section 21.51J.
Thank you. May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Draper?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Jensen?
Yes.
Mayor Abu-Osley?
Yes.
Mr. Sternad?
Yes.
Mr. Brandt?
Yes.
Ms. Gedalia?
Yes.
We're adjourned to closed session. We'll return to open session upon completion. Thank you again.